Welcome everyone to the award ceremony of the Volvo Environment Prize 2022. I am Niklas Gustafsson. I'm the secretary to the board of the Volvo Environment Prize Foundation. We are broadcasting live here today from the CampX Innovation Arena in Gothenburg, Sweden. And we will be talking about microplastics. This year we have 3 laureates whose work has alerted the world on the effects and the dangers of microplastics spreading in the oceans. We will soon get to know more about the research of our laureates, Penelope Lindyku, Tamara Galloway and Richard Thompson, who are live with us here today in the studio. Later on, we will talk on how to stop the plastic pollution in a Q&A session, where we will also connect with experts from Austria, from India, and from California. There will also be celebrations, entertainment, and much more. But first, what is the Volvo Environment Prize?
The Volvo Environment Prize Foundation is rewarding path-breaking science. For over 30 years, this award has gone to people dedicated to the understanding of our environment. Researchers, scientists, professors. From all over the globe, across countless fields of research. From biodiversity to technology, from the cryosphere to the atmosphere, awarding those who pursue the most important knowledge of all, how to make a lasting world. How we tackle the enormous sustainability challenges ahead must be guided by science. That is the reason for the Volvo Environment Prize's existence. But the prize doesn't exist just to tell the scientists good job. It's also here to tell everyone else to listen and to act.
In the studio here today, we have Martin Lundstedt, President and CEO of Volvo Group, and also the Chairman of the Volvo Environment Prize Foundation. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you very much, Niklas. Great to be here.
This is actually the 33rd year that we are rewarding our scientists with the Volvo Environment Prize. What are your reflections on this?
No, but I think it's fair to say that in a very turbulent world, this scientific award and science in general is more important than ever. We see huge flow of information of different kind, but in order to get the attention, many of these flows of information are populistic and opportunistic, and science is a very important counterweight to that. And if we look at the laureates that we have had over the last 33 years, which is mind-blowing in a way, not a lot of people in our sectors were talking about sustainability in the way that we do it today. We see also how all these laureates have actually influenced the agenda of sustainability, how they have brought that as top of mind in business, in politics, policy making, but also in civil society. So great contributions and very important contributions.
Yeah, you say many times that you believe in science. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, but first and foremost, because if we look at the link between progress for humanity in different shapes and forms, science and eventually research, technology, innovation, and then, so to speak, implementation has brought us a long way. In many cases in very positive terms, but also, of course, in challenging terms. But I mean, if you just reflect on what has happened, electricity, we see a lot of the different type of machines and engineering, medicine, drugs, anti-cancer drugs, for example, a lot of progress. And if we reflect upon the last 3 years now with the pandemic, how the scientific society had come together and really been supporting society at large is just fantastic.
Amazing. Very good. And on the green transformation, you were into this, and I guess that microplastics also playing a part in there, right?
Absolutely, and I think also, I mean, if we look back a couple of years also, how scientists have been guiding, I have to say, supporting, but also been opponents of how the trajectory have been. And when we look at the green transformation, obviously for us, it is extremely important to connect now what we know from science and what we should do in different industries. We know that the solutions for decarbonization is coming to a big extent from technology and how we apply it. We see also that the spreading, as you say, about microplastics is a huge issue that we need to tackle. And I mean, we have our share to tackle also in our industry. If I look at transportation, I mean, the wear of tires when it comes to our products and how they are spreading and how we need to invent new materials, new way of addressing that side.
Exactly. So even if we have fully electric trucks, we still have tires on them, right? So from a microplastic spreading perspective, we still have a challenge.
And we always say that I mean, if you just take 1 second on our sector, and we know that the logistics and transportation infrastructure will continue to be present in society. It's very important for a prosperous society, but it needs to be considerably more sustainable. That's the reason why the whole discussion and not the least action about sustainability is very close to the DNA and where we and others in our sectors are investing for the future.
And Martin, with your hat on as being the chairman of the Volvo Environment Prize Foundation, then it is important, right, that the foundation is independent from your role, from our role in Volvo Group, right? Shall we maybe take a look on how this works, and let's come back to that.
Absolutely.
And the idea is really to protect millions square kilometers of this very important carbon sink.
If we don't put a price tag on nature, we are effectively saying nature is worth nothing.
We need the oceans more than the oceans need us.
The sustainability will be won or lost in cities in the global south.
You have to do more than just be an excellent scientist. You have to be an excellent scientist with impact on society to help us deal with the big problems. But the core, the base, the requirement is you must be a world-class scientist to get this award.
I think we are witnessing a big mind shift, actually, from the idea of treating the environment as a sector to a strong recognition now that we as a species, humans, are completely dependent on a functioning environment. Totally dependent on the Earth system and its thin biosphere that we're embedded in. And I think that recognition is moving really fast now, especially in the business community.
So Martin, it is important that this foundation is independent.
Of course it is important both for getting, so to speak, the right scanning and the methodology, because we need to have very experienced and knowledgeable members, both of the scientific committee that do a lot of the scanning, but also, of course, of the independent jury. But it's all about also credibility, transparency, and inspiration, because not only that we have been inspired in so to speak, the foundation from all our laureates, but also when it comes to the collaboration that we have with the jury and with the scientific committee.
If we come back to the challenges here that are posed on us on climate change, by biodiversity, but also by plastic pollution, then how do you see that industry is facing up to these challenges?
No, but I think it has been a big step up. I mean, I've been into this industry for 30 years now. And even if that has always been on the agenda also for business reason, because I mean, durability, fuel efficiency, is also very important business metrics. But what I see now is a much more holistic view on how we are thinking about it, not only in our industry, but cross-sectorial. And that I think is very promising also, because we see that there are a number of very important solutions that we need to deploy at scale already now, that are existing, that has been, so to speak, invented, and that we need to do together by working together, so to speak. And secondly, also in parallel, obviously, a lot of scientific work, research, and and ongoing innovation is also happening at the same time. And that's the reason why we think, and we are very positive about it also, that we actually can deliver a lot of acceleration when it comes to this very important field, both when it comes to the climate change, biodiversity, and we see also a huge movement when it comes to the view, not at least in the B2B sector, on circularity and how you think about that. So if we think about our industry, I mean, it is about, of course, our technology. It could be, I mean, battery electric solutions, fuel cell, hydrogen, what have you, biofuels, etc. But it's also about moving a whole society from a brown, fossil-based platform into a green platform. And that requires a lot of coordination, actually. It's not only about the technology, it's also about the business models. It is about how we are behaving in these value chains. It's about also how we are affecting, so to speak, the customer influence, etc. And that is very exciting to see what is happening now. One very big movement that I think will change this movement even quicker is actually the Science-Based Targets Initiative. Science-based meaning, okay, how do you go to the 1.5 maximum, so to speak, target in line with the Paris Agreement? And companies that are actually signing up for that is also doing the inventory of their CO2 impact, but also other, so to speak, harmful emissions, etc. And that is important, setting targets, but more important is that you're disclosing your progress. And people and companies don't want to stand there and say, we have done nothing. But the more important part is that the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 are connected, not only internally in companies, but also between companies and value chains. Meaning that we need to cooperate in a completely different way. And we see that movement now, that our customers and customers are doing a lot of things to pull us, and we are pulling upstreams. And then the magic is happening. Here we have something, when we talk about business, academia, politics, civil society, policymakers, customers, suppliers, I think this movement is something that we all should embrace. We should embrace the transparency and we should embrace the progress. And here we need all our fantastic laureates.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Martin. We will be back with you in a short while when it's time for the award ceremony. We have a tradition here at the Volvo Environment Prize to send a film team to the home and workplace of our laureates. So I asked Claes Sjöberg, journalist on environment and science, together with Tore Marklund, filmmaker, to go to Devon in southwest England and investigate why has it become the way that this part of the world has become so central in the microplastic research area.
They're absolutely everywhere.
We've got this growing evidence that the microplastic is a problem, that not very much has been done to look at solutions. At the what do we do about it? We need to start to take action.
A beautiful view of the sea outside the coast of southwest England. Looking at the sea from here, it's hard to understand that there is a massive problem of ocean plastic pollution out there. But it's right here in England where scientists first discovered what happens to all our plastic waste when it breaks down into microplastics.
So microplastics are a huge array of contaminants. Wherever we go, we can find them. Now, this is quite large plastic, as you can see, but when it's in the marine environment, the action of the wind and the waves and the UV light breaks it down into smaller and smaller pieces. It doesn't degrade, it doesn't go away, it becomes microplastics.
These small fragments are actually the most numerous. When I started to teach students, I set them the challenge. I said, go and find me the smallest piece of plastic on the beach. And that's really what started the story of the microplastics. We found plastic smaller than the grains of sand themselves.
The size range that they break down into is exactly the same size range as the prey items for so many different marine animals. So there's the potential for them to be ingested instead of nutritious food items.
The three UK scientists, Richard Thompson, Tamara Galloway and Penelope Lindeque, have been at the global forefront of marine litter research for many years. They have also helped to bring about changes in global policy with their work central to international government legislation and influencing the process, leading to the United Nations Treaty on Plastic Pollution, signed by 175 nations.
I think everybody is actually on the same page, that there is a problem, and that consensus, I would say, has led us to the UN Treaty, which is fantastic.
The UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution, due to be negotiated in the next couple of years, is the result of rising worldwide attention on the dangers of plastics.
Oh, look at that.
Absolutely no doubt that this bird died as a result of that plastic. It's quite alarming, isn't it?
Oh, that's awful.
Even in one of the world's most protected natural environments, the pristine Galapagos Islands, scientists find vast amounts of microplastics.
Galapagos is one of our most protected parts of the planet for the marine environment. That protection is what gives us this great biodiversity, but this protection doesn't stop microplastics from entering these waters. So we've been doing research in the Galapagos archipelago for the last 3 years, and we've found quite high numbers of microplastics around those beautiful islands.
These are our samples from the Galapagos, and bring it back here to the lab where we sort the plastics, as you can see here. And we use these for some of our lab experiments.
We've collected samples from the deep sea, working with deep sea biologists. And since then, we've gone on and we've sampled samples of snow taken from Everest, and we're finding microplastic there that's reached it by the air. So we realize now it is literally everywhere.
Do we humans have it in our bodies too?
It has been shown to be in our bodies, yes. Even to the fact of it's been in the placenta of pregnant women.
Richard Thompson led the first study, published in 2004, describing marine microplastics. It was an alarm bell that got a lot of attention, and the topic has since become a focus for research worldwide.
We were able to look back in time, it's a kind of time capsule, and we showed actually, comparing across the decades over 40 years, a significant increase in the abundance of this material. So then the next steps were almost to go on and look at the so what question, if you like. How harmful can it be?
There are still significant gaps in knowledge about how microplastics spread and where they go, but intensive research continues.
What we're doing is we're sampling from microplastics, those really small bits of plastic, less than 5 millimeters in size. We want to know how much is in the marine environment. We're also sampling for zooplankton, and we know from lab-based experiments that nearly every zooplankton species we've looked at in the Northeast Atlantic can ingest microplastics. And we now know that that also happens in the natural environment. So yes, if those tiny, tiny bits of plastic are there, then the zooplankton can eat them.
Almost certainly. All of us have plastics additives in our bodies. We know that from many of the studies that have been going on. So many of those chemicals can have harmful effects on the body.
The scientists have also tracked the sources, from plastic bags to microbeads in cosmetics and tire particles.
It's clear that tyres wear on the road and they generate particles. What wasn't clear was where do they go? It's become dust that is entering the environment, entering watercourses, entering the oceans.
Critically, the laureates have also looked into potential solutions, evaluating the potential for natural and mechanical measures to clear plastic from the environment.
One of the things we're doing is turning towards a nature-based solution, and we're scoping the feasibility of using mussels, which are natural filter feeders, and they can ingest the plastic as they ingest their normal food, and they pass that plastic through them into their feces. And from our lab-based experiments, we know that 5 kilograms of mussels can remove 250,000 plastics per hour. It's absolutely incredible. So we do a lot of testing to make sure that our interventions and our alternatives are fit for purpose.
But then there are other sources of fragmentation from wear, that all of the textiles, the clothing we're wearing will progressively wear out whilst we're walking around in it and using it, but especially also while we're washing it. We've been studying the quantities released from garments as you wash them and how that varies according to the style of the garment.
I try to find how we can design and produce better textiles to reduce the amount of microfibers they release to the environment.
The microbeads in cosmetics, for example, very small particles used in cosmetics as an abrasive agent. All of these came out of this one container. In fact, some of the containers we looked at contain nearly 3 million small pieces of plastic.
There's a huge effort going on in research and innovation all around the world on what we do instead and how we can produce safer alternatives. The problem is it's a design problem. We're designing plastics to be robust and to survive for 500 years, and then we're using them for 20 minutes and we're throwing them away. I mean, it's not a surprise that we've got a problem.
The three scientists continue to work with industry and policymakers on the most effective ways to change the design of plastic products and to bring about a cultural shift in society's use of them.
You are perhaps the godfather of microplastics. How far has our knowledge developed?
The plastic in the oceans is going to be cumulative. It's not going to biodegrade.
It is worth tackling. It's not so trivial that we should be looking elsewhere.
We know, but certainly we realise there's a need to gather more evidence on harm, and that's what we're trying to do.
We've educated the public, and that's helped put pressure on governments and companies.
What about the process that gives them no alternative? To use a plastic that will degrade harmlessly?
It has to change so that we can get the benefits that are inherent in plastics without this rapid, continuous accumulation of highly persistent waste.
We will soon get to know more about our laureates in part 2 of the film. But first, today we have the pleasure to having with us musical artist Amina. 21-year-old Amina has been singing for all her life, and when she fled from Yemen to Sweden in the wake of war, her music was the only thing she could bring. Since then, her career has taken off tremendously, not at least by performing together with Håkan Hellström at his outsold concert here in Gothenburg last summer. I give you Amina.
I was listening to the ocean. I saw a face in the sand. But when I picked it up, then it vanished away from my hands down. I had a dream I was 7, climbing my way in a tree. I saw a piece of heaven waiting in patience for me, and I was running far away. Would I run off the world someday? Nobody knows, nobody knows. And I was dancing in the rain. I felt alive and I can't complain. But no, take me home where I belong. I can't take it anymore. I was painting a picture. The picture was a painting of you. And for a moment I thought you were here, but then again it wasn't true. And all this time I have been lying in secret to myself. I've been putting sorrow on the forest place of my shelf, and I did out. And I was running far away. Would I run off the world someday? Nobody knows, nobody knows. And I was dancing in the rain. I felt alive and I can't complain. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. But no, take me home where I belong. I was running far away. Would I run off the wall someday? Nobody knows, nobody knows. And I was dancing in the rain. I felt alive and I can't complain. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. But no, take me home where I belong. No, but no, take me home where I belong. No, but no, take me home where I belong. I can't take it anymore.
Thank you very much, Amina. As you saw earlier on in the video, it's the scientific committee that selects candidates, and then it's the prize jury that makes the final choice. With me today, I have Dr. Sibylle van der Hove, and a jury member, and Professor Thomas Elmqvist, a member of the scientific committee. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
What singled out this year's research area and the laureates?
I think about the laureates, really, what is important is that they took this systemic, holistic view, and they tried to look at how human actions are influencing the environment and the ecosystems, and then back how this influences human health and well-being. And actually, it could go back to influence the ecosystems because the health system is using a lot of plastic. So there's this idea of taking a systemic view, which is really important if you're going to do environmental science. And the second thing I'd like to stress is that we selected a team. And I think if we're going to understand the environment and act on our relationship to the environment, we need to work as team and collaborate.
Thank you. And Thomas?
Well, for me, I think the laureates have shown an outstanding ability to combine deep but also different and very complementary competencies that had enabled them to take this systemic view and actually go anything from documenting the sources of the problem and how it's transmitted in nature to the effects on organisms and ecosystems, and then going into influencing policy responses and implementing practical solutions.
Very good. And Sibylle, maybe as a member of the jury, would you like to read something from the citation from the
Yes, thank you. I'm going to read not the full citation, it's on the website, but I'll read part of it. So their groundbreaking research focuses across multiple disciplines on understanding the impacts of plastic pollution on the health of humans and on the environment, including the potential disruption of the carbon sink capacity of the oceans. This unique contribution is achieved by teamwork and the synergy between three research approaches: the breakdown of the plastics and the ingestion of microplastics by invertebrates and interaction with biological tissue, the role of nanoplastics, and the ecotoxicology and effects on marine eukaryotic organisms. The research by this team has been instrumental in providing societal awareness of plastic pollution as an emerging global challenge and triggering policy actions.
Thank you very much, Sibylle and Thomas. And as promised, let's get to know our laureates a little bit better by watching the second part of the film.
Today, advanced research is almost always about collaborations.
The 3 award winners have succeeded in developing methods and results within a research area that hardly existed 20 years ago.
In many ways, you could say we're quite similar. We've got passion, we've got drive, we've got curiosity, but in other ways, we can be quite different.
Penelope Lindegue, born and raised in South Devon, describes herself as having always been curious. Her fascination with biology led her to a scientific career in marine organisms and ecosystems, particularly zooplankton.
I've always been intrigued about understanding how things work, especially in nature.
When she first came to Plymouth Marine Laboratory, she was a PhD student looking at zooplankton, and I knew right from the very start that this was someone who was really committed to the science, but also to the environmental cause that underpins that science as well.
I became interested in knowing what we as humans did to that natural environment. What impact did we have, in particular, on anthropogenic pollutants?
She is a fantastic supervisor, making sure that we have a good work-life balance, so she tries to get the very best out of her team.
Penny is very good at all sports.
She likes being outside, she just loves being on a paddleboard, she loves being outside in the ocean.
There's a sense of really moving back to nature and farming and being self-sufficient that's really, really close to her heart.
I want to make a difference to ensure that our oceans remain clean and productive and healthy for our children and our children's children.
When studying to become a marine biologist, Richard Thompson had no idea that he would once be called the godfather of microplastics. But as an academic, he coined the term microplastics, now commonly used in scientific and policy circles.
Richard was fundamental to adjusting our survey methodology in about 1990 to look at very small particles of plastics which were going to very soon degrade into microplastics, because his research initially understood that it was likely at that point in time to go into the food chain. So he was fundamental to how we worked.
As a scientist, he's focused on a problem, and until he's solved the problem, he won't give up. He's also extremely good at working in collaboration, and he's particularly interested in how do you deal with the outcome, not just what is the outcome, and I think that's the important thing.
People's minds work differently, and the way he thinks and the way he processes stuff and comes up with ideas and projects is just really inspiring and really amazing.
When we went to the Galapagos Islands, I have a very firm memory of Richard lying flat on a beach with a camera, waiting for several hours for a Galapagos flamingo to do something for his camera image. He's a very keen wildlife biologist and very patient. I couldn't have done that.
Tamara Galloway grew up in Scotland and studied biochemistry at the universities in Glasgow and Edinburgh. That she now, as a professor in ecotoxicology, has been awarded the Volvo Environment Prize comes as no surprise to the provost at the University of Exeter.
I was absolutely thrilled. Tamara is one of our best scientists, and the Team Plastic is just a great example of what we can do.
She's a great researcher and mentor and really supportive supervisor.
I've always really enjoyed working with Tamara because of the fantastic ideas that she has. She always knows the important questions to be asking, and she's driven some really big changes in the whole field of microplastics research.
I think we're able to bounce ideas off each other and challenge each other's thoughts, which is really useful.
It's really nice to work with people where we take slightly different perspectives on things. So we've been able to bring Richard's knowledge of marine biology, my knowledge of ecotoxicology and chemicals, Penny's knowledge of ecology, and we couldn't have done what we've done if it was just one of us.
As scientists are sometimes criticised for working in an ivory tower. We need to lose that approach. The future is about academics working together to solve environmental challenges.
Now, welcome to our laureates. We will now concentrate on a session here on solutions, what to do about microplastics and how to stop the spreading of plastic waste in the oceans. We have our laureates here. We also have 3 PhD students here in the studio with us, prepared to ask them questions. We also have input from industry, an author of a book on microplastics, and an entrepreneur devoted to recycling of plastic waste. We will start in San Francisco, where Matt Simon is based. He is the author of a new book that was released just last month called A Poison Like No Other. We asked him why he named the book that way. Does he think that microplastics are a looming environmental disaster?
I would say not just looming, but it's here. It's an environmental catastrophe, and it is what scientists have done recently is really put together this great body of literature on where in the environment microplastics are, which is absolutely everywhere: land, ocean, in the air. They're now turning to the consequences, and we so far have several cases of demonstrated harm of these particles to various organisms. And the urgency of this catastrophe is that it is only getting worse from here. So as plastics production increases exponentially, so does the concentration of microplastics in the environment. So an organism that might not be affected by microplastic pollution right now could very well in 5, 10, 15 years, because we have what is essentially an unmitigated flow of microplastics into the environment. That's the emergency, and I think that's the urgency. Concern might be putting it mildly, but science is necessarily conservative, right? So they have to build up this body of evidence as to the demonstrated harms of microplastics, both in the environment, in biological senses and ecological senses, but also in our own bodies. And we are just starting to get a handle on it because we just didn't know the extent of this pollution until quite recently. And again, now the focus is shifting to what are the consequences. And I can tell you for sure the consequences are not good. The extent to which they're not good, we'll see in the coming years. We need to elect politicians that truly understand that plastic pollution and microplastic pollution are essentially the same thing as climate change. We're not going to get anywhere on systemic change without the political will. And it's going to be tough in the United States, at least because our political system is captured by fossil fuel interests. But actually in Europe, you guys are doing much better at microplastics research, pouring a lot of money into that, especially the human health aspects. So kudos to you, and embarrassing for us.
Thank you very much, Matt. Let's see if we have some comments from our laureates. Tamara, maybe?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is a design problem. As I said previously, it's a design. We're designing something to last 500 years. We're using it for 20 minutes. Because it's a design problem, we can solve it. Change the design, solve the problem.
That's a positive attitude. Thank you. Let's have our first questions to the laureates from our PhD students. They are all involved in research projects that deals with different aspects of microplastics. So we have with us here today Azora Koenig-Kadgar, we have Dipanita Ghosh, and Sarah Stevens. So please, go ahead.
First of all, congratulations again. We have a few questions about your research career. And I would like to know if you have ever been confronted with opposing opinions on the potential hazards of microplastics, especially by the plastic industry, and if so, how did you deal with that?
That's maybe you, Richard.
Well, thank you. I mean, of course, the message here is that the current business model is broken, that it's no longer sustainable to take non-renewable resource to apply it to short-lived applications and then turn it into highly persistent waste. But the good news is that it's a problem that we can solve, as Tamara says, by design. And that's a collaboration, working with industry and working with stakeholders. And I absolutely welcome those discussions, because it's only by working together that we can actually solve the problem and use plastics more sustainably than we've done so far.
Thank you.
And Dipanita?
So my question was like, how did your findings about the presence of microplastic impact on your personal lives regarding the consumption of the products?
Thank you. So certainly what we found over the years has made a difference to what we try and do at home. Firstly, trying to reduce our consumption of single-use plastic, so avoid buying food that comes in a lot of packaging, perhaps shopping more locally or even growing our own. And another big factor has been looking at our clothing that we wear. If possible, trying to buy sustainable clothing made of natural fibres, or possibly even buying second-hand in charity shops. I think one of the important take-home messages is to consider that it is our problem and everybody can do a little bit to help. We shouldn't leave it to someone else to solve the problem.
And Sarah.
Yeah, congratulations also from my side. My question is, have you, if you could talk to someone directly about the issue of microplastics, who would it be?
Well, if I got the chance, I'd talk to the producers who make the most virgin plastic in the world. I'd be talking to the CEOs of those companies, but importantly, I'd be talking to the asset managers who manage the profits of those companies, and I'd be persuading those people towards sustainability.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. And to follow up a little bit on this, how...
There's a quite fundamental problem with the way how we work with plastics today. Actually, the way we make it, the way we use it, and the way we dispose it is linear. So actually, we use fossil and we throw or burn the plastics after using. That's not the way we can continue. So that's why our strategy is to accelerate circular economy and avoid plastics leakage, because we're aware that we need to protect our planet. And that's the reason why we're advocating for the United Nations Treaty for Plastics, because it's exactly doing that. It's exactly trying to find a harmonized, globally harmonized regulation to accelerate circular economy and to prevent leakage of plastics in the environment. I am optimistic because I think now there's so much happening. First of all, we see a dramatic change of awareness and a dramatic change of sense of urgency. What I also see is that legislation, at least in Europe, but I'm sure the rest of the world is moving the same way, is really focusing now on making the planet more sustainable. And there's a lot of regulations in a positive way coming to drive that. Where I'm not so optimistic is, but I'm not sure whether it's good or bad, plastics is needed in our industrialized world. And what we see is plastic always has been growing with GDP. And we see also that in developing countries, plastics is increasing. But as long as we can replace these fossil plastics with recycled renewables, we can work more on reuse. That's not a problem. So it's not the material is the problem, it's the way how we manage it. And I think on that I'm optimistic.
Good, thank you, Marcus Horschner. Penny, would you like to make a comment maybe to what Marcus said?
Certainly, I think it's a very timely comment because just today in Uruguay, the dialogues on the UN Global Plastic Treaty have started, and I think collectively we all want a bold, ambitious and regulated treaty which helps reduce the production, the consumption and the leakage of plastic into the environment, working towards the circular economy.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one short question and one even shorter answer.
Yes, I think we have one more question, which is the most important for the three of us. And that is if you have any advice for early microplastic researchers like us.
Well, I'd be saying ask the right questions. You might have all the best kit, but make sure you're asking the right questions.
Any more comments?
I would say we now know that there's a problem. We need more evidence about the specifics of the solutions, what works and what doesn't work.
Penny?
I would also say keep an eye on the solutions, work with the chemists, with the designers to try and have safer by design products.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. One of the reasons huge amount of plastic leak into the oceans and to the environment in general is the lack of waste management in many countries in the world. We have spoken to an entrepreneur who has decided to do something about this in her native country, in India, in Bangalore. Niveda RM is the CEO and co-founder of TrashCon. They have created a machine that helps solve India's huge waste management problems.
In a developing country like India,
the biggest problem when you try to solve plastic menace is that the plastic is not available for you to even treat it in the first place. The plastic is mixed with food and diaper and sanitary napkin and dead rat, blood, literally everything that comes to your mind is possibly with the plastic. So how on earth can anybody recycle it or create value other than just dumping it and burning it? So that was what was prevalently present right outside my house. Waste used to get burned, plastic used to be burnt, and it was absolutely okay. So we decided to do something about it. We decided to recover the plastics from the remaining waste. And then we created what is today a patented product called TrashBot. That's a bot. It's actually a large machine which uses mechanical, electrical, and electronic components, a bit of programming as well, to separate and recover plastics from the remaining waste. But what ended up happening was we realized the plastics that was coming to the streets or going into the drains or going into the rivers were plastics that nobody wants. These are called multi-layered plastics, which are also non-recyclable in nature. It has a layer of aluminum sticking onto it. All your food packaging, chips, biscuits, everything has this material. And then we had to push ourselves and build yet another technology to recycle non-recyclable plastics into recycled sheets, which are similar to plywood. But what ended up happening was we were creating an alternate to plywood, but it ended up being even better than plywood because now it was waterproof, termite proof, and most importantly, we didn't solve a problem and create a problem. We actually solved the problem. So the plastics can be recycled again and again and again. So it does not have to end up in the landfills after it goes to your house as a bench or a desk. So this is what we built. We built technologies, we built business model, but most importantly, we made a profitable business model that our customers also can use and derive value so that it is sustainable. And I would still say that all the solutions need to come together to solve the problem of microplastic. It's not one solution that solves the problem of this magnitude. So I think we are one of those many solutions. That's where I would like to put ourselves.
Thank you, Niveda. Richard, any comment to what Niveda has told us?
I think it's amazing the ingenuity that's been shown there, particularly at the end of a product's lifetime. What we really need to do is to bring that level of ingenuity together in the design stage too, so that we're designing products with end of life in mind, and we're not having to throw energy at solving a problem of multi-layers when maybe we could find an ingenious way not to need them in the first place.
Excellent. Thank you very much, dear laureates. Martin, you heard from our laureates here that science is all about collaboration.
Yeah.
What is your comment to that?
First and foremost, I think we have heard that aspect and the importance of that aspect over the many different ceremonies that we've had with the laureates, and how important that is in solving sustainability challenges. And this year is great because we have a team.
Yeah.
First and foremost, that is talking about the importance of collaboration within the team, with their respective teams, but also with the different stakeholders like us in industry and also pushing us in industry. And also we heard the jury and the scientific committee talking about the systemic and holistic view that will be more important than ever because we cannot work in silos anymore. So why don't we, I think we have 51 laureates now, so let's take a look on all of these fantastic people.
And now, dear laureates, Martin, as our chairman, is ready here with the award. But before we go into the official handover, let's hear a few words from Judith Goff, His Majesty's Ambassador of the United Kingdom to Sweden. And may I ask you, Ambassador, the laureates' research is strongly linked to the oceans. So are also many other things in the history of United Kingdom, right?
Well, there's a big starter for 10. No, I think if you look at both Sweden and the United Kingdom, both of our countries have based our wealth on our command of the oceans and the seas. The first British settler came to Sweden, to Gothenburg, in fact, where we are today in 1621. And of course, we have been coming here for centuries across the North Sea. And I think where both countries have profited so much from the oceans, from trading across them, we have a responsibility to protect them as well.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now, the award. It's a glass sculpture, a handmade diploma, and 1.5 million Swedish krona. Welcome, dear laureates, up on stage.
From the sun I run, in the dark is where I've become. Free from being judged of who I am or more. Thought I would be free, still I could feel him but I know your bullets will run out, and I'll be out, reaching for the light, doing what I think is right. I know your bullets will run out, and I'll be out, reaching for the light, doing what I think is right. Not your prey anymore, you locked up the door, hiding inside, you turned off the light, you turned off the light. Now your bullets has run out, and I am out, dancing in the light. I'm doing what I think is right. I'm doing what I think is right. I know your bullets has run out, and I am out, dancing in the light. I'm doing what I think is right. I'm doing what I think is right.
So dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching today. We believe in science, we believe in scientists, and today we have watched 3 fantastic scientists that are pushing the future and shaping the world we want to live in. And we from the Volvo Environment Prize Foundation will continue to do our part and to continue to support scientists that are pioneering the field of a sustainable future. Thank you for watching.